This week's episode of Taking Inventory is brought to you by one of our sponsors, Meet Market, your AI assistant for e-commerce marketing. Market isn't just another growth tool, it's a member of your team, helping you keep a pulse on your business and trained to save you time and make you money. It's also co-founded by James Barrow and myself. Visit us at withmarket.com. Now, let's get to the podcast. Anish Dalal is the CEO and co-founder of Sapphire Studios, a performance content marketing agency. Sapphire helps brands scale with highly engaging, highly performant UGC content for social, including as one of the premier content agencies, part of TikTok's marketing partner program. They founded the company in 2018, and since then, they've worked with some of the world's biggest brands like Amazon, Nike, Disney, Fabletics, and so many more. In 2021, Anish and his co-founder were recognized for their success by being named to the Forbes 30 Under 30. So Anish, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's kick off, and why don't you give us a little background about how you started Sapphire and how it's grown to the powerhouse agency it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been fascinated by entrepreneurship, so I was always doing something. Circa 2010, I got into the App Store and was making apps for the App Store based on App Store search demand. So we'd go look up what people are searching to buy ads for and see search volume and then make apps based on that. Through that process, got really good at this thing called ASO, which is App Store Optimization. Got really good at ranking apps in the App Store. And then that was kind of my first company. And then in 2017, I met Thomas. And then we started helping other app companies acquire users. And so that was the original, or still the legal name of the business is Sapphire Apps Media. And the reason being was we helped app companies acquire customers, and we got really good at it through social channels. And in 2018, this app came around that had just bought this other app called Musical.ly, and they needed help growing. So this app was called TikTok. So in 2018, TikTok needed help acquiring users for TikTok itself. And we were one of the largest partners through non-paid channels. And then we grew with them globally from the US, Europe, APAC, MENA, and we helped them get customers. And then in 2020, late 21, or late 20 into early 21, they had launched TikTok ads. And we were one of 4 partners that they invited as part of a program to help get better TikTok creative, so the ads would be more efficient because the TikTok creative is completely different. And then, from that day on, we went all in on creative because we just saw the power of UGC creative and performance creative, and we went all in. And then today, we're Sapphire Studios, have a team of 60 full-time that everyone focuses on is making performance creative, and we're excited about the future of creative.
And what for just kind of randomly, I guess, but the ASO side, that's something I know very little about. Is that still a game that people can play, or is it sort of, just tell us about that world, and then obviously we want to hear about.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting. I think there's still opportunity there because I remember when I got in, somebody left because they thought the market was saturated. So I had read a book, I think it was called App Empire or something. And he wrote the book because he thought there was no more opportunities. Let me write a book instead. So he made apps, he sold his app companies, and these are smaller apps. But the strategy was you create a lot of apps, and you essentially have this network of users. But I don't think it's as possible today as it was back then, because nobody was trying to SEO the App Store. Back then, everybody was trying to create a billion-dollar company. And my strategy was, let me just hit as many singles as I can instead of trying to hit home runs. So my portfolio ended up being 500 apps. They're all 99 cents back then. And, each had 50 downloads a day.
Were you coding? Are you a developer? Were you building these things yourself?
No. So it was really the marketing part that I was doing and figuring out what app to make and what niche to make it in. And then through that whole process, I learned how to hire a development team early on. It was overseas in India. And then I brought some developers, started hiring developers in the US. But yeah, that taught me 2 things. Taught me marketing and how to hire.
What did you learn during that time? I mean, you're acquiring 50 users a day for these apps. What did you learn about acquiring users and how to do it so efficiently and engage them to download apps that I assume were not powerhouse games that, were going viral?
Yeah, it definitely taught me how to lean into demand. And that's been a model that I've used since then on every business I engage in, where we weren't trying to create the demand, we were leaning into it. So somebody was searching, game guide for Clash of Clans or optokinetic drum. And the competition was low or non-existent. So we're like, okay, if we cater to this search keyword, we could be number one, and then slowly we can start creating an app network. Uh, One of the first like types of networks I created was strategy guides for app games. So I'm not sure if you guys know, back in the day, like strategy guides for like Call of Duty and stuff was popular, but I was the first person to do strategy guides for app games. And the first one I did was like Clash of Clans. I hired the best, like the influencer of Clash of Clans at the time. He showed how to beat every level, and then we put it all into an app, made it seamless. And then basically I did that for every top game, and then took all that traffic and brought it into a central IP.
Crazy. And I guess like when TikTok came around, I mean, is it pretty surreal to think that like A, I guess like you were involved with them so early, and B, like it's turned into this behemoth? Or did you think like this thing is gonna be huge and it was kind of obvious?
It was very interesting for us early on because it was 2018, and I remember we were talking about it, and the perception everyone had about TikTok was just, a place where kids dance and sing. Um, but it was to us, it was very clear early on that TikTok was going to win. The way they just executed in terms of strategy, in terms of acquiring users, they were so efficient. They were very aggressive in terms of growing quite quickly. And that video format was. I remember when we were doing the marketing for TikTok, we were doing marketing for other apps too. One of the strategies we would use is we would edit videos and put it on meme pages. If you guys know what those are, but we were the largest buyer of meme pages in 2019, and TikTok was the largest customer. And I remember for TikTok, we wouldn't even have to do any editing on the videos because the videos themselves were so inherently engaging. Where for other clients, we actually had to make, their app more engaging, take the videos out, edit them properly. But for TikTok, we could literally just take a top TikTok video that they had cleared for us, just post it on the meme page, and the meme pages that would be their largest, like best performing video. So for us, the signal early on was the product was inherently viral.
It's kind of an interesting jump though to go from like App Store, ASO, and reposting these existing videos on meme pages to then educating and directing clients on how to actually take advantage and build the right creative to go acquire their own customers. And so, how did you make that leap from we're going to help TikTok grow to now we understand this format and we're going to help other brands grow on this platform?
Yeah, great question. And that was just an insight through that time. When we were helping TikTok get users, we realized this UGC video vertical format, which is basically the TikTok format, was doing so well and it was very engaging. In addition, for other clients, we were using paid channels to acquire customers. But the funny thing is, as we looked at that channel more and more, a lot of the small levers you could pull um, started disappearing. Back in the day, if you're a really good Facebook marketer, you could be like, okay, I want to target this person who has Amex Platinum, goes to Burger King, lives in New York. And all those assumptions would mean that, you had better assumptions than somebody else and you get a really low CPA. But all those things slowly started disappearing where we noticed the only real input into paid ads was becoming creative. So that was one trend we were seeing. The other trend when we were doing the TikTok downloads was we were seeing how engaging this UGC format was. Um, and between those two waves and two insights, in 2020 we decided to just go all in on creative, shut basically sunset all the other parts of the business. And in the beginning, it was really hard because the other parts of the business were doing really good, and to sell creative was very difficult, pure creative. But then we were definitely early and at the right place at the right time, and really leaned into just trying to make the best UGC creative.
And in terms of like just kind of building out, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, like how thinking about you guys, but like kind of building out like this influencer network, of just like all this talent that you guys can deploy. Like, how do you even start? Like, did you guys like what was the strategy for kind of building up the supply side of like what is effectively a marketplace, right? At the end of the day. And so, yeah, how'd you deal with the cold start?
Um, Prior to so when we were doing the call it more of the version one of Sapphire, we're just doing acquisition. We had built up networks with influencers. But the awesome thing for the UGC creative was anybody could be a creator. So we use the same approach on how we would onboard influencers. But in this situation, the UGC creators are like essentially unlimited supply, whereas influencers, it's much harder to scale with influencers, just because everything's so custom, all the rates are so custom. Influencers, it depends on who their audience is. But we use the same approach, and we grew our creator network quite quickly because people were happy to make a good amount of money for an hour of time. Plus, at that time, and as we scale, Sapphire had some amazing clients where they were getting free like furniture, free laptops, free Dyson Airwraps. These are like $600. So our creator network just started growing because the type of products we're giving out, and we have a lot of volume. But we have a creator team that does messages on Instagram, TikTok, reaches out to universities. They have multiple areas where they're acquiring, bringing creators onto our platform, and then also we run ads for it.
A quick break from one of our sponsors. Meet Market, your AI assistant for e-commerce marketing. Market isn't just another growth tool, it's a member of your team, helping you keep a pulse on your business and trained to save you time and make you money. It's also co-founded by James Barrow and myself. Visit us at withmarket.com. Now back to the podcast.
Interesting.
And in starting this, you guys were heavily focused on TikTok. Has that expanded since then? And have you seen both brands and consumers lean into this type of content on other platforms and it start to proliferate elsewhere?
Yeah, that's been the cool part of the business, where we leaned into TikTok because it was just growing so fastly. But that TikTok format ended up becoming the universal format for the future of like vertical UGC creative. Initially, we're like, oh, this is TikTok creative. But then our clients would start using it on Instagram Reels, Snapchat Stories, or even just using it on Facebook, like the video format. And it started working really, really well. And so now we work with all the platforms. Our creative is universal. There's slight editing that needs to be done. But basically, I believe what happened was TikTok was working really well, and essentially the other platforms followed pursuit. So therefore, the TikTok creative works really well on all of the platforms. Whereas originally that wasn't true, where when we started, Facebook marketers were trying to use Facebook creative on TikTok, and it just wasn't working because it's completely different. But yeah, I just believe this format's the future, and like leaning into this type of video creative for the next 2 to 3 years is going to be, it's going to be the place to be.
And given like how many campaigns you guys have like run and the brands you've worked with and just like how big the creator network is, have you been pretty surprised by like what things go viral? And then the second question about that is like, is there a playbook? Like, do you think, like how in the world does some of this stuff just go nuts?
Yeah. How things, like the part I was most actually shocked by was, so let me frame it. We work on the paid side. We don't really work on the organic side. Early on, our assumption was, hey, we'll take the top trends and make them into ads, and it'll work. And that was the assumptions all the brands that came in had as well, and even till this day. But we realized taking a trend and turning it into an ad doesn't necessarily perform for paid. It performs for organic. There's more variability there. But for paid, there's structures and like the way you shoot the ads that work. But overall, it's really leaning into the product, being very strategic about how you place the key selling points and how you articulate them. And overall, an ad, it kind of looks like an ad. That's the part we were shocked by. The ads that look like ads but are very intentional worked better than when we tried to like make this trend ad. So that was our biggest insight, where in the early days we were trying to replicate trends into ads. That wasn't working. It's very much hey, like I'm trying to sell coffee. This is why this coffee is so great. And this is where the coffee came from, and like great visual shots. And the way we shoot the ads keep evolving, but the fundamental uh, structure of it's still like a paid ad is an ad, and it also feels like an ad. Still works very well today.
You guys have reputation. We've talked to people at TikTok, at Snap, elsewhere. You have a strong reputation in putting out quality creative very quickly, and you're dealing with individuals on with their own phones over email. You're not directing these people face to face. And so how do you maintain that high quality with this distributed network? Like how do you create that process? What is that process to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want when you're not directing people face to face?
Yeah, that was actually another insight we had early on where we thought we could just take a brief and give it to a creator. And free form was better than scripting. But what we do now, which is the biggest part of our team, is scripting. So we have creative strategists that script every single ad because we have right now we have about 400 clients and then all the data that goes along with it. So basically for any vertical, we know exactly what's working. And then we'll take, the client's spin on it and then make it very tailored to them. So we have a script that goes out to our creators. And then what happens is the creators then send back raw videos in surplus of what the client's expecting. Then the team on the account will select the best videos that they think match up the best. And then our editing team will go ahead and edit it. So our process really is it's really a dialed in process where a client comes in, we start scripting. We have just troves of data on what's been working and what hasn't from like every single frame of a video for each vertical. And then we just get surplus of content back. And then it goes off because we really believe volume of creative is very important too. There should be a certain threshold of quality, but anything north of this level, like a certain level of quality, it's randomness. So therefore, volume can augment, the ability to achieve success there.
And given that you guys, I know TikTok's sort of been like the focal point, but given now that you're working with everyone, just like and given that we're former Snap guys and kind of homers for Snap, is there like I've read a lot about how like Snap like for influencers is starting to come back, that like Spotlight's working well, and like a bunch of creators are getting paid to post, and like it's kind of making a renaissance. Is that true? Like what's your point of view of like how Snap is doing kind of in this market? Like is it becoming like, does it have a role with sort of the influencers, or is that really still like a TikTok Instagram game?
Snap's awesome. So we work with Snap, and I think it's completely undervalued because it's not the number one or two spot often where marketers go. And this video format on Snap, if you create video specifically for Snap, we're seeing great results when it comes to acquiring customers for our clients. And we just believe it's undervalued because people aren't focusing on it. Because Snap was the video format before TikTok was. I wish, I feel like Snap could have gotten there first, but Snap's video format is is basically very similar to the TikTok format. In the early days, one of our largest acquisition channels for TikTok was Snapchat. That's how we got all the TikTok customers. So I think Snap is completely undervalued. Our brands are hitting great ROASs and CPAs on Snap, but you just have to focus on it and give it proper videos and ads. Because what we're seeing mostly on Snap right now is everyone's treating it as a testing channel. So they'll use a lot of template ads, static image ads on Snapchat, and that's not working well. So when everyone's not paying attention to it, if you pay attention to it, there's a lot of room to succeed on Snap.
You guys are, I know you guys are doing some interesting things here, but with AI now coming out and being introduced in a lot of marketing channels and marketing platforms, what are you guys doing, and how do you see the broader change in the industry, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey over the last 6 to 8 months. Once that ChatGPT release happened, we were on it right away. We even brought in some engineers from Google to help us lead those efforts. The key place we were trying to innovate in was the scripting. The scripting part of our business is the largest cost center because that provides the most value. And we have all we have thousands of scripts which are the top performing TikTok ads. So we started training our own AI models, if to make those scripts for customers who couldn't normally afford Sapphire. So we were using this model called Aquarius for SMBs. So what AI has helped us to do is start servicing the SMB market where we historically couldn't, because our price points were just, didn't make sense for SMBs. So now an SMB or small and medium sized businesses can come to Sapphire, answer a few questions. Scripts are then generated based on models that have been trained on basically the top ads in the industry that have been made by us. And we have all the performance data to loop back to the system. And the scripts are made, and then, those scripts are then sent to our creators. And then our creators are trained, via the Sapphire process to act them out. And we get the videos back. So that's where we're at right now. But the part we're really excited about is we're also testing with AI avatars and AI, like lip syncing and language changing. So we can easily take all the videos that come in for Sapphire, give them to our clients so they can run them globally. So those are the two key areas where we see AI really helping, is just going through all the data that we have and understanding it better, and then generating good scripts. But the key insight we have seen is those scripts are not, they can't, they're not so good that they can like run on an enterprise account. They're better than anything else on the market for an SMB. But we were very bullish early on, and now we're bullish, but conservatively bullish on when the next AI inflection would happen to really help make like automated ads. Because the second it came out, we were like, can we do automated ads? And you can do them for SMBs, but for the enterprise customers that are, where those accounts are very competitive, like like basically any hot D2C brand that's spending a lot of money on paid, it doesn't work.
That's a good transition to some of our rapid fire questions. I think you talked about AI. I think that's definitely something that everyone in the industry is very interested in seeing how that continues to develop. But outside of AI, what are some of your predictions for the creative space and what's to come?
I think in the next 2 years, especially video creative, is underserved. And I think in the next 2 years, it's going to reach some type of equilibrium. And then after those 2 years, it's going to be overserved. So I feel like in the next 2 years, there's a lot of innovation that can be done in the video space. And then after that, I think, probably need some predictive models to figure out which ads will do good, because there'll be so many ads available. That's one. And two, I think customization and personalization in ads will become very popular in the next 2 years through, AI innovations, where an ad that you see could be very different than something that James sees, in terms of not only what they see, but can literally be talking to you.
And for brands that are embracing this type of creative, what are some of the misconceptions or the common pitfalls that they fall into?
Sure. If you're a brand and you're trying to run paid ads, don't run a trend as an ad. That would be my main advice.
And then what for you guys is the biggest challenge working with a new brand?
I think initially it's them understanding what UGC creative looks like, and it looks a lot more authentic and natural. Once a brand understands that and sees the performance, it becomes easier, but that's the first initial hurdle. It's just a different flavor of creative.
And of all the ads that you've seen and you've worked on, do you have a favorite?
My favorite ads are actually ads from the past. And what I mean by this is we make ads that are between 15 and 30 seconds, and we're trying to convince people to watch the hook, which is the first 3 seconds. But the favorite ads I like to learn from are the ones from those infomercials, where people would sit down and view an ad for 30 minutes. So we try to, teach our team, and we try to take lessons from the past and how people convinced buyers to sit down for 30 minutes, call it like an OxyClean ad. So those are my favorite ads.
That's cool. Where can people find more information about Sapphire, about you? Where can they follow you guys?
Sure. So you can visit us at our website, sapphirestudios.co. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anish Dalal. And then on Instagram, it's Anish D. And then, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. LinkedIn is probably the best.
Awesome. Anish, really appreciate you walking us through this. I think learned a ton about UGC, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Before you go, we need your help. If you enjoyed this week's episode of Taking Inventory, then subscribe or rate wherever you listen to the podcast. And while you're at it, please share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend. We'll be back next week with another episode of Taking Inventory. See you then.